One of the guiding principles of the design of this prayer space that we're in right now is a feeling of closeness. I remember when I took a tour with Amy Lemley, a past president of the congregation, she reminded me or shared with me, because I didn't know it before, that when they built this space, the furthest seat in the back was far closer than the seats were in the old sanctuary. We wanted to make sure that when we were praying in this space, we didn't feel so far away, we didn't feel disconnected from the people who were up here. Unfortunately, there are always things that will disconnect. Moments where you can be up here and I can do the best job that I can, but at the same time, I may not reach you because it's possible maybe there's a language barrier. There is some other way in which I'm unable to connect with you. And it was so powerful and so enriching and so exciting when I and the whole clergy team got an email from Carly Gellis, a member of our community and a student at Scarsdale High School, who said to us, "I loved and was inspired on the high holidays when I was younger, where I would come and I would see someone doing ASL interpretation on the bima to ensure that the barrier between those up here and those down there was as low as possible." And how excited she would be at the opportunity and prospect to come and offer ASL interpretation as a part of our service. And I said, I cannot wait for that to happen. So I'm so excited to invite her up. So Carla, if you join me up here. For those of you who are sitting over there, the only thing I'll say is she'll be offering live ASL interpretation. I hope that you can see. But if you want to move, no one will be offended. If you wanted to come and sit over here, if you want to stay where you are, that's totally fine. I never want to move people from their seats, but wanted to make sure that was offered as an opportunity. And I know that those of you joining us via our live web stream will have clear and easy access. Thank you, Edon. "'Twas down in Mississippi not so long ago when a young boy from Chicago town stepped through a southern door. The boy's dreadful tragedy I can still remember well. The color of his skin was black, and his name was Emmett Till. They say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, but at the same time, it feels odd to be quoting Bob Dylan to all of you. Not because I have anything against the amazing singer-songwriter, but because I have been so accustomed to learning about Bob Dylan from Rabbi Blake. Yet, this song struck a chord with me this year, no pun intended, as I thought about the legislation that just passed Congress, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which makes lynching a federal hate crime. You might be wondering why it took our country so long, and as I read about this legislation, I wondered the same thing. There have been hundreds of attempts to pass this legislation, beginning with the Dyer anti-lynching bill of 1918, 3 years after Leo Frank was lynched. The mob that lynched Leo Frank sparked the renewal of the KKK, calling themselves the Knights of Mary Phagan after the young woman who Leo Frank supposedly murdered in a pencil factory in Atlanta. This legislation has been stymied time and again until finally it passed almost unanimously, with only 3 legislators voting against it. Today, we memorialize this heinous crime in the hopes that what happened to him will never happen again. If you don't know the tale of Emmett Till, it was 1955. Till was a known stutterer and found it hard to communicate on a regular basis. He was accused of whistling at a white woman in a grocery store, and a mob formed to lynch him. Most historians blame the stutter. Emmett was one of the thousands of lynchings that spread racial terror throughout our country. As Dylan described, and then to stop the United States of yelling for a trial, Two brothers, they confessed that they had killed poor Emmett Till. But on the jury, there were men who helped the brothers commit this awful crime. And so this trial was a mockery, but nobody there seemed to mind. I saw the morning papers, but I could not bear to see the smiling brothers walking down the courthouse stairs. For the jury found them innocent, and the brothers, they went free, while Emmett's body floats the foam of a Jim Crow southern sea. In Parashat Shmini, two brothers tragically die. Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, brought before Adonai foreign fire that God had not commanded them. And fire went forth from before God and consumed them. And Aaron was silent. Two questions have bothered our people for generations. First of all, why did they have to die? And secondly, why was Aaron silent? Our rabbinic ancestors have come up with countless reasons as to why these young men deserve to die. They were drinking wine as they entered the holy space. Because they were unmarried, they were arrogant or power hungry, or simply because they acted inappropriately. This year, I find no solace in any of these arguments, no wisdom in their explorations as to why these boys deserve to die. All I see in our text this year are two young men who made a mistake and died for it. 10 years ago, it was Trayvon Martin, gunned down on his way to buy Skittles because he made the mistake of wearing a hoodie. And sadly, countless other men before him and after him, Emmett Till, Jacob Blake, George Floyd, Eric Garner, and the thousands of young black men whose names we do not know, who were murdered in the name of God in our country. And too many of us have been like Aaron and are silent. Religious justification for murder remains a dark stain on the moral character of America. As the Southern Poverty Law Center reports, according to their propaganda, KKK members believe the Bible is the family history of the white race, who are morally and spiritually superior to other races. Their beliefs advocate that God created other races as mud people, who have beast-like roles and lower standing to white men. Such religious interpretation dehumanizes non-whites and provides spiritual justification and perhaps motivation to attack their enemies. Jim Crow laws represent an infamous implementation of this ideology, but there are unfortunately far more. Every year on my annual pilgrimage to the American South with our 8th graders and their parents, we visit so many places that memorialize the way our country could be better. That trip was one of the last things I did before COVID began. And next week at this time, Cantor Rodniski and I will be praying at Temple Beth Or in Montgomery, Alabama, with members of our congregational trip. One of the places we will visit is the Legacy Museum, a project of the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. The museum ends with a series of facts about our country and asks us to speak out against them if we believe they are unjust, to not be like Aaron, who was silent, but to shout and to fight to ensure they change. One question focuses on the Alabama Constitution. It says, "Today, the Alabama state constitution still mandates that there be racial segregation in education with separate schools for white and colored children." Continues, "While barring black children from attending schools with white students is prohibited by federal law, the Alabama constitutional ban still exists And each and every time an effort to remove this language was voted on, predominantly white voters voted to keep this restriction in the state constitution. What does it mean that Alabama Constitution still prohibits racial integration in education, and what should be done about it? This is just one moment, one question, one challenge for us to not remain silent. Each question in that museum is a chance for us to look at the country we live in, the place we call home, and ask us not to be like Aaron, silently watching injustice when we could act. As Dylan's song ends, so shall we. If you can't speak out against this kind of thing, a crime that's so unjust, your eyes are filled with dead men's dirt. Your mind is filled with dust. Your arms and legs, they must be in shackles and chains. Your blood, it must refuse to flow. For you to let this human race fall down so god-awful low. This song's just a reminder to remind your fellow man that this kind of thing still lives today in that ghost-robed Ku Klux Klan. But if all of us folks that think alike, if we gave all we could give, we could make this great land of ours a greater place to live. Yasher Koach.